What's the most devastating thing Emil said that made you throw your engagement ring back in your partner's face? When Brett first introduced me to his parents, his dad Walt seemed pleasant enough, if a bit quiet. Susan, on the other hand, spent the entire dinner quizzing me about my background and family connections, with this weird, tight smile that never reached her eyes. Brett brushed it off later, saying she was just protective and old-fashioned. His exact words were that she came from a family that valued certain connections, but that he didn't care about that stuff. I believed him because, well, love makes you stupid sometimes. When Brett proposed last year, I was over the moon. The problem started almost immediately after we announced our engagement. Susan insisted on being involved in every single detail. At first, it seemed helpful, but it quickly became obvious she was taking over. The venue I loved was too shabby. The catering I wanted was not the kind of food served at their family events. The dress I fell in love with was a bit cheap looking, don't you think? Brett kept saying it was easier to just go along with her suggestions than fight her on everything. The real turning point came during a dinner at their house about 3 months before the wedding. Susan had invited her friends Rita and Angela over, and I realized halfway through that I was basically being paraded in front of them for approval. They kept exchanging these little glances whenever I spoke. At one point, Rita asked where I summered as a child, and I laughed, thinking she was joking. When I explained that my family's idea of vacation was camping at the state park or visiting my grandma in Ohio, the table went silent. After dinner, Susan cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping clean up. She started with what seemed like casual conversation about Brett's ex-girlfriend Melissa. Then she mentioned how Brett had always been destined for great things, and how she hoped I wouldn't hold him back. When I asked her what exactly she meant by that, she dropped all pretense. She told me that while I seemed nice enough, I clearly wasn't from the right sort of background to help Brett's future. That my lack of refinement would eventually embarrass him in important circles. I was so shocked I couldn't even respond at first. When I finally told her she was being incredibly rude, she just laughed and said something about how my defensiveness proved her point. She said Brett deserved someone who could match his potential, not drag him down. I walked out of the kitchen and immediately told Brett we needed to leave. In the car, I was shaking as I told him everything his mother had said. I expected outrage, anger on my behalf, something. Instead, he got quiet and said she didn't mean it like that, and that she was just worried about our future. He asked if maybe I had misunderstood her tone. That night was our first major fight. I couldn't believe he was defending her behavior. Apparently, she'd been filling his head with doubts about whether I would fit in with the future he imagined. He was actually listening to her. It all came to a head when Susan invited us over for another dinner, supposedly to clear the air. Brett practically begged me to go, saying she wanted to apologize. Like an idiot, I believed him and went. There was no apology. Instead, Susan spent the entire evening making backhanded comments about my clothes, my table manners, even the way I spoke. When Brett stepped outside to take a phone call, she leaned across the table and said, with this chilling certainty, that I was nothing without her son, that he could do so much better than me, and that I should walk away before I ruined his life with my ordinariness. When I started crying, she actually rolled her eyes and said my emotional behavior just proved her point about my lack of composure. When Brett returned, I was gathering my things to leave. I was done. In the car, I told Brett exactly what happened and said he needed to choose. Either we cut contact with his mother until she could respect me, or the wedding was off. I expected him to finally stand up for me. He didn't. Instead, he said maybe his mother was right. Maybe we were rushing into things. Maybe we did come from two different worlds to make it work. The man I loved, who had sworn he didn't care about status or background, was suddenly parroting his mother's classist nonsense. I took off my engagement ring and placed it on the dashboard. I told him to drop me at Angela's place instead of our apartment. He didn't even try to stop me when I got out of the car. Because here's the thing, Brett thinks he can keep choosing his mother, but he doesn't realize how much he's already lost. When it finally hits him, he'll understand it's too late to fix things. I can't tell you what I did in this short video. The full story is on the channel, link below.